You're not the voice in your head. Most people think they are living their life, but often we are not really living. We are sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee, while our mind is holding a court case about yesterday, a crisis meeting about tomorrow, and a full emotional documentary about something someone said in 2018. Very efficient. And the strange thing is, we believe this voice is us. That is one of the central ideas in The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. You are not your thoughts, you are the one who can notice your thoughts. And that sounds simple, almost too simple, like the sort of sentence you find on a mug next to a candle with suspicious pricing. But it is actually quite radical, because if you can notice a thought, then there must be something in you that is not the thought. You think, I'm going to fail, but maybe that is not truth. Maybe that is just a thought, a mental weather forecast. And as we know, weather forecasts can be useful, but they also enjoy a bit of drama. I know this from experience. I have spent, honestly, heroic amounts of time worrying about things that never happened. Entire disasters, fully produced, with lighting, music, and me in the starring role as the tragic but misunderstood hero. And then the next day comes and nothing happens. It's actually, very disappointing for the production team in my head. The mind is a brilliant tool. We need it. It helps us plan, solve problems, remember passwords, and occasionally pretend we understand tax forms. But the mind is also a terrible roommate, especially at night. It starts with one small thought. Did I answer that email correctly? Then suddenly you are reviewing your whole career, your personality, your future, and, whether people secretly find you annoying, and all because of an email that said, thanks. This is what the mind does. It travels. Your body is here, but your mind, it's off in yesterday's mistake, next week's meeting, and in some imaginary argument where you finally say the perfect sentence. I have won many of those imaginary arguments, sadly. Nobody was there, which is honestly a bit inconvenient for my ego. And that brings us to another point. The ego loves drama. The ego is the part of us that builds a story around me. Am I respected? Am I important? Did I win? Was I right? Did they notice how wise I was when I said interesting in that meeting? The ego does not always want peace. Peace is, bad for business. The ego wants a plot, preferably one where it is either the victim, the genius, or the hero, sometimes all three before lunch. Someone sends you a short message. Okay, that is all. But the mind says, why just okay? Is he angry? Did I do something wrong? Should I also answer short? Maybe I should write fine, with a period. That will show emotional maturity. And there we are. A full psychological thriller created from just 2 letters. So this is why Tolle's idea really matters. A lot of our suffering doesn't actually come from the event itself. It comes from the commentary. Reality, it gives you a traffic jam. But the mind, it turns it into a personal tragedy, complete with background music. The traffic jam is annoying. Of course it is. We're not pretending to be floating saints in linen trousers. But honestly, the second layer is totally optional. Why does this always happen to me? My whole day is ruined. Humanity has failed, especially the person in the left lane. Acceptance doesn't mean you have to like what happens. It doesn't mean you do nothing either. It just means you stop fighting the fact that, this moment already exists. You begin with what is true now, not what should have happened, not what might happen, not the dramatic version narrated by your inner news channel, just this. And here's the practical part. You don't have to stop thinking. Good luck with that, by the way. The mind doesn't resign politely. So the first step is simply to notice. Instead of saying, I will fail, try saying, there is the thought that I will fail. And instead of nobody respects me, you might say, my mind is telling me a respect story. Or instead of, I am angry, just notice. Anger is here. That small distance, honestly, it really matters. You are no longer inside the thought, you are observing it. And when you observe a thought, it loses some of its authority. It may still be loud, but it is no longer automatically the king. I sometimes do this when I catch myself rehearsing conversations that have not happened. I simply say, The mind is doing theatre again. Not bad, not stupid, just theatre. And usually that already softens it. Being present does not mean becoming weird about it. You do not need incense, a mountain retreat, or a voice that sounds like you are permanently explaining tea. Presence can be simple. Feel your feet while walking. Taste your coffee instead of mentally attending 3 meetings. Listen to someone without preparing your brilliant reply. Notice your breath before answering too quickly. Return to the moment before your mind turns it into a movie. Because the present moment is not boring. We are just rarely there. The past exists now as memory. The future exists now as imagination. But life itself only happens here, now. So maybe the beginning of peace is not fixing every thought. Maybe it is simply this: stop believing every voice in your head that claims to be you. This was Captain Help, smarter every day in every way.